no gold is not enough.
Hey guys, how's everyone doing today? So basically the purpose of this video is making a tutorial about the Aerosoft A320. Here we have it, and in this case this is the Lufthansa livery. Today we are in Hamburg airport and we're going to actually do a short flight to Frankfurt, which is really close to here. That's not an hour flight long even, it's really short. And the purpose of this video is to teach you guys how to operate this aircraft in a professional way without complicating ourselves. So that's why I chose Hamburg. It's not an airport where you would take more than half an hour taxiing to the runway. It's actually a small airport. Well, not small, it's large, but it's not as large as Frankfurt or any other airport. And we're actually going to Frankfurt, which is our arrival airport, sorry. But we are departing from here, which is Hamburg, and it's quite smaller than Frankfurt, of course. So this aircraft that we have here is the Aerosoft A320. Is probably the best Airbus add-on that you can get, Airbus A320 add-on that you can get for your FSX or Prepar 3D. And these are pretty accurate aircraft. The quality this aircraft has is actually really good. It simulates everything that happens in real life in a perfect level. So today we're actually going to learn how to operate it. So one thing that you should know before starting this video is that if you have Prepar 3D, it can also work for you, because this aircraft works the same way for FSX and for Prepar. And another thing is that this aircraft is not for beginners. I mean, if you downloaded your flight simulator yesterday and you're planning to begin flying with any knowledge, this is not the aircraft for you. So it is not very difficult itself, because it is simple regarding that it is an A320, and A320s in real life are not the most difficult aircraft to fly. We compare it to a 757 or 767. But it's still an aircraft where you should at least have basic aviation knowledge to help yourself to fly this thing. Of course, it comes with a checklist helps, and it comes also with a co-pilot help in case you need it. But if you want to fly in a professional way, you should at least know basics of aviation. Okay, so as I said before, today we're going to do a flight from Hamburg heading to Frankfurt. So just to do a quick tour in the cockpit here, starting with the head panel. Here we have all regarding to the navigation system. This is the nav display. This will activate the aircraft position, the GPS. Here we have also the ground proximity system, which is the one that warns you how close you are to terrain. This is responsible for getting those callouts we get when we're landing, 2,500, 1,000, and so on. Here this is something used for emergency. I'm just only going to introduce like the most important things. So here we have the wipers. We can put them in slow or fast. They are not going to work right now because the aircraft is not powered. This here is the other wiper, our right side wiper, the first officer's wiper. And all here that we have is the lights panel. So here we have the external lights, here we have the cabin signs, the emergency lights. This is the cabin pressure. We have the window heat, the anti-ice. We have here, all of this is responsible for air conditioning. Actually, we can see that it has some labels. And here's the electrical system. With this we can power up the plane. So actually, if you guys see, if we click with this external power connected, the aircraft is actually going to power up. Up here we have the hydraulics and the fuel. So these are the fuel pumps and these are the hydraulics. And this is the engine fire indicator, so APU fire, engine 2 fire, and engine 1 fire. And we can actually test these ones. There we go. Alright, so that's the most important things about the overhead panel probably. And now very quick we're going to check out here. So as always, here we have our autopilot section. So with this you're actually going to control everything that the autopilot does. Here we have our barometric references. We have here, this is used to control the nav display. I'm going to show it in a moment when you have the aircraft power up. And that's it. So here we have our nav display. If we actually scroll with after the aircraft is power up with the battery or with external power or maybe the APU, if you scroll this you can actually control the brightness of these screens, and they are called the primary nav displays. Here we have the eCam. Same thing, if we actually scroll here we can control the brightness of the eCam display, and we can use these buttons down here to select what is displayed in the lower eCam. So if I select here, we can see the engine display, we can see deep lead, cabin pressure, and all this information that we have available here: APU, doors, wheels, flight controls, etc. This is the MCDU. Here we use it to program the route, and this is the second MCDU. This one is more used here to manipulate the aircraft settings or the aircraft doors, ground services, everything more related to the operational things. In real life, this one would be exactly as this one, but in here it is adapted so you can control the doors and everything, because we don't have flight attendants and that. So something important to mention, when you open the Aerosoft you're going to get an arrow here. If you open it, we can have several views of the cockpit to get some easier views to select. So here in the MCDU2 we can actually activate this, that what I was talking about in a moment. So this aircraft actually comes with a checklist and a co-pilot in case you want some help. But in this flight we're not going to use it because we are trying to make a complete tutorial here. So now to end with the most important things in the cockpit, here we have our parking brake. Here we have the flaps, the speed brakes. This is everything related to the engine startup and ignition. Here we have a radio control, TCAS and transponder. This is the first officer radios controls, rudder trim, and this is the pitch trim. You can actually set it up, you can scroll it and manipulate it. And yeah, that's the most important things in the cockpit. It was not a detailed tour, but if you want a detailed tour of the aircraft and you want me guys to explain what each button is for, you can just put it down in the comments, and I'm gonna make a more specific video just to make a tour over this cockpit. So right now this aircraft also has a really cool feature. If we actually press here doors, we can see we're gonna get a view of what's at the other side of the door. However, it's not functional. I mean, it's just like an image. I don't think that anything is going to happen there, but anyways, you can just activate it. It's somehow funny and fun. If you press again there, oh, nothing happened. If you press OK, it's right click. Okay, if you right click it, then you have that screen off again. So now let's properly start with the aircraft preparation. So the first thing that you should do is to make the cockpit checklist, right? What you should look at if the aircraft is in cold and dark state. So I'm going to set up again the cold and dark to begin from 0. I'm gonna put in cold and dark, and here we have again the aircraft completely shut down. So the default state of this aircraft when you download it, when you purchase it, it is going to actually come with a taxi state or something like that. So to put it in cold and dark, you just need to do what I just did. You go here to aircraft state and you activate the cold and dark mode, and here we're going to have the cool and dark state. So first of all, we should do several checklists over here. Usually first pilots check that master switches of the engines are off. Here we can see that they are actually off. The engine mode selector should be normal, so here we have the engine mode selector in normal. The landing gear leveler should be down, and the wipers should be off. Batteries all should be off. So I'm actually not going to check that because we already know that they are. We are in cold and dark state, but in real life pilots should check that. So before beginning with the tutorial itself, I'm going to get a friendly tip for you guys, and it's that if you go actually to the Aerosoft files in your simulator, you're gonna find something that's called the documentation, and if you open that folder, you're actually going to have access to the checklist of normal procedures. So it's a 30-page or something like that document where you can get the normal procedures checklist, which is really similar to the one that pilots use in real life, and I would strongly recommend it because it's going to actually help you a lot if you want to fly in a professional way and get the most you can enjoy this aircraft the most. So yeah, we can see there's a plane landing right now, or going around. I'm not pretty sure what's going on there. Anyways, so the cockpit preparation right now, the first thing that we should do is the external power. You should set it on to power up the aircraft. If we can see here, the external power is this little power unit we have here. It's a portable unit, we can move it. So what you should do is power up the aircraft. There we go. And you should also start the APU when required, says the checklist, but we can start it right now. So we're going to go down to the E side, and we're going to just press here and press here. Now we have the APU starting right now. After that, you should turn on the ECAM right now, because the ECAM is the one that's going to give us all the important information from now on. So as I said before, you just scroll this here, and then you're going to control the brightness. And we can scroll these ones right now also to turn on our primary nav display. So after that, the APU started and everything. Now we go to check that the parking brake is on. It's not really needed right now because we have the wheel chocks, but anyways, we can just turn it on for anything. Flaps are retracted, speed brakes are retracted. So these things are more to be checked because it's a checklist, but they are not steps itself. Simply we're checking that everything is in order right now. But as I said, for simulation maybe it's not that needed, because we already know that by default everything is going to be properly in its place right now. But in real life, pilots should check that everything is in their place. Okay, so right now we should test the ground proximity system, where it should be on. It actually is on. When something is off, you're gonna actually see that you're gonna get an off sign here, but it should be on. By default it's on, so there's not any problem right now with that. And the barometric references, we check the barometric references here. 1013 is a correct value. You need to actually move this. Usually this is manipulated after you listen to the 80s in the airport, but we are not going to go to those specific things right now. We're just going to properly start up the aircraft. Alright, so after you have done all of this, we can turn on the batteries right now. So we turn on the batteries here, both of them, and as you can see, when nothing is lighting up here, it means that they are already on. The APU is available because what's really powering the aircraft right now, it's the external power. So as you guys can see, we have some red signs here. This is completely normal, don't worry. This shows a fault because the pucks, which are the ones that keep the cabin temperature, work with the engines right now, and the engines are off, so that's why it shows a fault. Also the generators, these are the ones that are going to power the aircraft when the engines are on. so we don't need FPU, we don't need body, and we don't need APU. However, they also show off all because engines are off right now. Great. So to continue our checklist, right now we can also turn lights on. Usually when there's someone working in the cockpit of the airplane, we turn on the nav and logo lights. We can also turn the wing lights if we want to. Beacon, it's only used before powering up the engine, so we don't use it. And strobes, we can actually leave it in auto. So this is an easier, better view of the lights if you want to use it. Strobes can be in auto right now. These ones are off for now, and we arm the emergency lights. So we just put it, and there we go. It should be in the arm position. This is on, but we want them in the arm position. In case of an emergency, you would usually turn them on, but if they are armed, they would do that automatically, so there's no need to do it. Seatbelt signs, we can leave them in auto, and smoking signs on. There we go. Great. Also, the fuel pumps, we can turn them on right now, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and there we go. So the off signs are already away. They have turned off, which means that the fuel pumps are now on. And we are actually now going to turn on the navigation, the GPS right now. So we right click it, sorry. And right now there we leave them in nav, all of them. So that's going to actually make that the aircraft has now a GPS source to rely. And okay, now we go to init and we align the RS. We click on there. So basically what that's going to do is that we're going to have the map avaliable and the hedge also. That's going to actually help the aircraft locate itself. Like, that's what allows the aircraft to know where we are exactly right now. So that, of course, that's going to take some time, actually a realistic time. So things don't happen immediately. It actually takes some realistic time. That's cool. And here we can say that it says RS in align 5 minutes, which means that in 5 minutes we're going to have GPS position available here right now. Alright, so now we can actually go to the MCDU and we can now start configuring the aircraft for our flight right now. So here we are going to type the departing airport and the arrival airport. So for your actual flight plan, I'm going to go out of the simulator and for a moment you can go to this website here that's called Online Flight Planner, or you can use SimBrief, or if you have any other source to plan your flights you can actually use it right now. So basically what we want here, it's to download a flight plan to actually insert on the aircraft. So the flight plans in the aircraft, in the Aerosoft case, you can actually manually type them in, but you can actually just activate them as if they were a company route. So I'm just going to indicate you guys how to do that right now. So if you guys can see here, we have several file formats where we can download our route. There's the .rte that's used for PMDG. We have also .rt that's used for quality wings, and there's also another A320 here, but we want this one, .lflp, which is for the Airbus X, which is the Aerosoft Airbus. So after we do that, here we can put our departure airport. Right now it's Hamburg, which is EDDH or ECAL code, and we're going to Frankfurt, which is EDDF. There we go. Now we put our cycle, the flight levels that we want to use for this flight. So let's try not something that high, maybe from flight level 270 to flight level 300. Here we select if we want low or high. I'm going to click both, and this is very important. We have to choose the aircraft that we're using. This to determine how much fuel are we actually using. We select kilograms for fuel and we click on create plan. So really quick, I just want to make a little disclaimer here. We are not focusing in the altitudes, if the altitudes are correct for this route in real life. We are not complicating ourselves with the wind direction for choosing the departure runway. We are not complicating ourselves with the arrival runway. No, we just want to focus on the Airbus because this is a tutorial, and to make it practical we're going to keep it realistic, the most realistic possible, but towards the Airbus itself. So external things like the altitude of our flight plan and everything, and the flight number, all of that I'm just going to use a proper one. I'm going to invent one that makes sense, but we are not actually going to complicate ourselves focusing if that's real or not, because with Mars here is the Airbus itself. So here we have already all our route, and what we want to do here is click on go to files. So when we click on go to files here, we can see that deep.llp, it's the one that we want to use. So when we click it, we're going to have this downloading. So if we open this one, oh, what happened here? Here we have it. So we can actually cut this, and what we want is put that into the flight plan. So usually it's on your documents. When you go to Aerosoft and you click on Airbus, here you have flight plans, and we just paste it over here, and that's it. So here these are all the flight plans I have done. So if you have a new route, you just download that file and you just paste it over here. So going back to our simulator right now, what's going to happen right now is that if we put our departure airport, which is Hamburg, and we put our arrival airport, which is Frankfurt, you guys are going to see that actually we're going to have a route available for use. If we don't do what I just did with that web page, here is just going to appear known, which is not wrong as well. You can manually type the route also if you want to, but I'm teaching you guys this so you can do it in an easier way, which is also what pilots actually do. They don't type the route manually, they usually have already a company route. Here you can see that it appears company route, but anyways, there's also the option to insert a route manually, and it's also good to know how to do that. But to make things simple for today, I'm not going to type it in manually, but you guys can do it with no problem. You would just go here to flight plan, and well, I already have the waypoints here because I already inserted my company route, but if you don't have anything here you just begin to type in the airways and begin to type in the waypoints for the route. So our flight number, we are not going to care much about that. We can just come up with what one flight number, random flight number. Usually I used to put the date, today's date, or if you simply want to put a realistic flight number, you can actually search on Flightradar, right, where the real flights are, right? So we're going to put Lufthansa, is usually LH because we are Lufthansa today, and I just found in Flightradar that there are several flights for this route. There is LH11, LH15, so we're just going to put any of those. LH15, oh, I typed it twice, LH15, there we go, and that's our flight number. This doesn't even matter for the flight itself, you can just put any flight number. The cost index, basically this what determines is what this flight is actually going to cost for the airline, right? So a higher cost index makes the airplane get a higher cruising altitude and a higher cruising speed also, which is going to make us arrive faster to our destination, but it's going to cost more for the airline. For this simulation, this not actually does not matter at all. We can just put a random value from 0 to 99. 40 is okay. But in real life, basically this determines what the route costs, right? So if an airline wants to use a higher cost index, the aircraft is actually going to arrive faster, but it's going to burn more fuel, and that's going to actually cost more money. But for this flight, we're not paying anything, so we don't care. So this is actually the cruising altitude we're going to be using for today. We can actually go to flight level 280. Routes are also determined because on real life charts there are some constraints, there are some determined flight levels for some airways, but today we're not going to complicate ourselves. We want to actually make a professional operation for this Aerosoft, but we don't want to complicate with other things, so I'm just going to put a optimum flight level here. which is flight level 280. It works for our flight today. So after you put this page, you can actually go to flight plan, which is an option here, and basically what you're going to do is you're going to set up your route. As you guys can see, I already have my route in. Never mind, we don't have our departure and we don't have an arrival also, so I can just put here a departure. If we select our departure airport, you guys can see that here we have a departure option. So when I click here, basically here we can choose the runway we're going to depart from and the seat, which is the instrumental and departure right now. So what you usually should look up right now, it's the charts for your departure airport. So if I go again back to here, you can use Navigraph, which is a payware program to plan your flights, but you don't need to do that if you don't want to. You can just type the cow here and you can just type SID, and then here you see that we can find some PDFs with some charts. So you guys might be saying right now, hey, but why are you looking up for charts if you said that we're not going to complicate too much? Well, because what we want to focus is to get the most professional operation that we can get up from the Airbus, but we don't want to complicate with other things that do not have to do with the Airbus itself. So the wind, the departure, weather, the IATs, ATC constraints, we don't want to actually complicate ourselves with that. We just want to find some SID to actually type a departure in the MCDU of the Aerosoft. So here we can see that these are the stars, which are the arrivals for the airport, but we want the SIDs, which are actually the departures, the instrumental departures for the airport. So as you guys can see here, we already have SIDs here. It's actually turned aside, so I have to turn my head to see. But if we actually look here on Live Flight Planner to the route right now, we are actually going south to Frankfurt. So we want to look an SID that actually allows us to go south so that it makes sense, right? So as we can see here, Ideco is an optimum SID to use, northeast at this site. So we can use SID Ideco. So for Ideco, we can see here that we have to use this runway. So we're actually going to look for the runways right now. Here we have them. For Ideco, we have to use runway 33. Here we have it, runway 33. So if we go back to the simulator right now, we can actually look up for runway 33. Here we have it. So we select runway 33 and we want to look up for Ideco. So here we see that we have something that says IDEC. That's Ideco. So we select it, and here we have the option that says insert. We just click insert right there, and now we're going to have Ideco selected here. So as you can see, we have some neat waypoints which represent our departure. They are actually going to be set up here right now. The departure runway in real life usually is chosen depending on the wind and some other factors. Also, airports that have too much runways can only have a certain number of runways available at the moment. But anyways, we don't want to complicate with those things. We just want to select the optimum runway for our route. So in the charts, we actually put that. And to finally end up with our route, setting up our route for the flight, we would put the arrival. So for the arrival, you just go down to our destination. As you guys can see, you control this with these arrows. And here we can say that we have a flight plan discontinued right now. So usually this would not appear in real life, but here it's normal. We're just using any web page to plan our routes. It's not very precise. So to solve that, we just click here and clear. And once we have it here, we just click here. And that discontinued is actually going to disappear. So for our actual arrival here, we just click here on the arrival airport. Here we select arrival, and here we have several arrivals to use. So first of all, we need to check what we are actually about to do. So if you guys can see here we have several arrivals. We have normal runway arrivals, we have ILS arrivals here, and we have VORs right now. So what we're going to do is what we just did, but with our arrival airport right now. So we're going to go back and we're going to actually type EDDF, and we are actually going to type star, which means the standard arrival. So here we're going to get another document to see the several arrivals that we have here. Sorry. So if we go down, because it's a really long document, here we already have the AirNav stars, as you guys can see. So we're coming from north right now, which means that we could use just gonna check here. Okay, so this one actually works properly. If you guys can see, this is north, we're coming from north, and we can just use this star, which name it's Carax, and we can actually arrive using one of the runways here. So just to check also, I'm going to look for the runway charts right down here. If you are going to fly with VATSIM or something like that, you would be more precise with your routes. You would actually clearly check what you're about to do and all of that, but right here I'm not going to complicate myself. I'm just going to choose an optimum arrival runway and an optimum star to keep it simple. We just want to choose an optimum route. We're not going to complicate ourselves. So here we have runway 17, guess that is runway 17, but I'm not sure. Let me check another one. I'm just going to go back and use 07, right, there we go. And Kera 1 was the one that we just, so Kera, so we put Kera and we just put TMP insert here. And that's it. So sorry if I spent a lot of time in the charts looking up, but that's something that you should also get used to. Actually understand the charts and read the charts, which was what we just done. So now we just check our route for any discontinuities we might have, and here we have another discontinuity. So again, we're clicking clear and we delete it. And there we go. There we have our route properly set. It took time, but to put a correct route, you need to also spend time planning your flight, right? Usually this is done by the dispatchers, not by the pilots, but it doesn't matter. So these ones are actually in blue because this is going to be our go around route. In case we have to go around, the aircraft is going to follow these waypoints in order to go back to its arrival course right now. Okay, so after we have filled our flight plan correctly here right now, we are actually going to go to the other MCDU because we want to load our aircraft. So basically here you control the payload. For passengers we can put any number. We're going to put 175, which is near the max amount of passengers you can actually board. And if we click here, you guys can see this is actually going to start to tickle or brighten and not bright, and that's actually what shows is that the aircraft is boarding the passengers right now. As you guys can see, we're boarding. So they board in a realistic time also. That's a cool feature because this aircraft keeps realism really well actually. So you guys know when you're boarding an aircraft, you do not magically appear in your seat. You have to board it. So that's what happens here. Passengers start to board, like somehow to describe it. So here we have cargo. I'm not going to complicate myself. I'm just going to put 0, but you can put any number between 0 and 17. I'm just going to put 0. And here we have the fuel that we're taking. So to know how much fuel you need, you can actually go back to the software that you plan your flight with. In this case, it's online flight planner. This is completely free web page to use. And here we can say it sells fuel usage. So for fuel, we're going to require almost 2.3 thousand kilograms, 2.3 tons of fuel. which is equivalent for 55 minutes of flight time, because this flight is actually not that long. I also chose it because it's a short flight, perfect for this tutorial. We don't want to complicate ourselves. And here we have the reserve fuel. Actually, the reserve fuel is more fuel than the actual flight fuel, but this is normal. Usually in real life we get this amount of reserve fuel. This is going to be used in case we have to head up to the alternate airport, or just in case we want to do something different. Okay, here there's a weird, anyways, we can check that in a moment and we can fix the route. I'm going to teach you how. It's normal that when you use an open free page you can find nonsense things like this one, like why do we want to do this weird triangle? We can directly go to the VOR station, right? But anyways, maybe I don't know, we'll fix that later. So the case is that we're going to use 5.3 tons of fuel, or 5,394 kilograms. That's equivalent to 2 hours and 10 minutes of flight time in an A320. So that's very important. Don't forget to actually put here the aircraft that you're using for your flight, because just a little check here, if you put here Boeing 777 and you just click on create plan, you guys can see that the actual fuel that we burn in a 777 is much higher. You guys can see this is 17.2 tons of fuel, which is way more fuel than the one that we're actually going to use. This is almost equivalent to the max amount of fuel for the A320. So it's very important that you make sure that here you have the proper aircraft, so that you don't confuse and type in the fuel that's not actually the fuel. Anyway, so let's go back to our simulator right now, and we're going to actually load 5.3. Usually I like to load a little more, because as I said before, that's a free page. It cannot be that precise, so we can just round that to 6.0 tons of fuel. There we go. And then we click on load fuel, and fuel is actually going to start loading itself. Here we can see this is also in a realistic time, as I said before. But if you wanted to if you want to load it immediately, you can just click in load instant right here. So when you click it, you guys can see that immediately this loads all the passengers and loads all the fuel. Usually I wait this, because usually I activate ground services with the GSX Saturn and all of that, so you can actually set up a realistic turn time. But we're just going to load it instantly, so we can continue with the tutorial right now. So after we have already set the payload here, we're just going to go back to the MCD view here, and we're going to click on init, and we're going to go to the next page. Here this is actually going to calculate the fuel time. So what we have to do is just set again the fuel that we just set on the other MCDU. And here you guys are going to see that it actually is going to immediately calculate the time that we're going to take and all of that. So after setting up this, we can go right now to perf, which is performance, and we can actually put the V1, VR and V2 speeds. If you want to calculate that yourself, you can actually do it. However, the aircraft does it itself, and it does it good, because Airbus is really automatic. So we can just put flaps 1. We are in Hamburg, it's not necessary to use a big amount of flaps here. And as you guys can see, immediately it loads some speeds here. And we have next pages: climb, phase of flight, cruising, phase of flight, descent, and approach. But we're not going to look at those for now. We're just going to leave it here on takeoff. There we go. And after that, we would just check the fuel amount is correct. It actually is. The pre-flight briefing right now. So right now we can just do the pre-flight to check that our flight plan is correct. We don't want to end up in the jungle, in the middle of the jungle, and run out of fuel. So to do that, you here just right click it and here you guys can see that we actually go to the flight plan option. So if we go here again to the flight plan option as well, when you use the arrows, it is actually going to move through the different waypoints. So using this, you can actually check that your flight plan is correctly typed in. So here we're just choosing that our route makes sense, and this is the nonsense mistake that we just saw. I mean, why are we going to go to this waypoint to go again north up? So to solve that, this is not nonsense. In real life it can be, or it can happen because of a constraint, because of a restriction of the airspace, because of any reason. You can actually have to do this rule, you have to follow this path over here. But for our flight today, I don't think it's necessary to do that. So what happens if you want to delete a waypoint? And I'm actually going to use this as an example to delete it. You can leave it as like that if you actually want to, or maybe it's also realistic because sometimes pilots do have to follow strange courses because of restrictions and all of that. But today I'm just going to delete it, and I'm going to use it as an opportunity to show you guys how to delete a waypoint. So to delete that, you first have to check which is the name of the waypoint you want to delete. Here we have Arnix, which is the one that does not make sense. And here we're just going to go to Arnix. We're just going to look up for Arnix right here. So let me go up again. Here we have it, Arnix. So if we click on clear and we wait, it appears here, we just select and we just delete it. Of course, we're going to have a flight plan discontinuity because we just deleted a waypoint. So we again click on clear and again click here on the flight discontinuity. So here we can see that now we have actually the route, the complete route here, and we can continue checking right now. So as you guys can see, now when I scroll here, we actually have a direct course. We don't have to do that strange triangle that we have before. So here we have Karax, which is the starboard that we're using for our arrival, and here we directly go into runway 7 right. The blue waypoints that I just mentioned are the go around route. So if you continue scrolling here, you can see that basically it's the course that the airplane is going to follow. I'm just going to change the range so you guys can see. Oh, basically this changes the range. I have not mentioned that before. If you click here, you're basically going to see these in a different range right now. So if you guys can see here, this blue course basically is going to put us again into our approach, so we can go back to ROPSA here and we can get straight in again in case of a go around. So I don't think we're going to do a go around today, but if you want a go around tutorial, we can just do it. Just put it down below in the comments right now. So after you check your route, you're ready to go. Here I'm just seeing a little nonsense thing, so I'm just going to correct that. Yeah, basically as you guys can see, we have the map and we have another waypoint there that's not making sense to me. OBC, DMAP and OBC. So I'm just going to delete DMAP here. There we go. And I'm going to delete OBMI, which is the OBC. Yeah, OBC, that's the name. Some waypoints do have weird names. Anyway, so we look up for it, we delete it, and then we delete the flight plan discontinuity. As you guys can see here, we have flight plan discontinuity, and we actually here have a separation between our routes. So when we click here, it actually fixes it. So as you can see now, we don't have that weird turn left. That's not necessary. That would only be necessary if we have reports of bad weather in Frankfurt or air restrictions, but that's not the case, or at least in this flight we're not going to complicate with that. We're just going to select an optimum route. So now that we check our route, we can leave this back in perf for takeoff, and we can put this back in arc. There we have it. And our range we're going to put in 10 because we're about to take off. So that would be the pre-flight briefing, really easy actually. And now we're going to do the before start and pushback checklist. So usually right now we are about to take it. We can also turn on the terrain, and you guys might wonder why is nothing happening here. Well, if you guys see here, we have like two things that we can scroll. We can scroll this one, the outside one that actually controls the brightness of this primary flight display or nav display screen, but we actually have one that's the one that's stick to the panel of the aircraft. So what this does is actually control the transparency of the terrain. If I put it completely, we can see that we have a little square here that's basically showing terrain, and if I put it off, we can actually see that it's more transparent, and if I control scrolling, it actually disappears. So now that I think twice, we don't need this right now, because as you guys saw, there's not much terrain showing up when we activated it. It's just like this little thing right here, which is nothing. That basically happens because we are in a flat area right now. If you guys check, we don't have any mountains around, but if we were taking off from an airport which has many mountains around or that, we could activate it. For this flight, it's not necessary. Also, if you are at sea level, it's not necessary, but I just wanted to show you guys that it was good to show it. So before pushback checklist right now, so at this point pilots would actually get clearance from ground and from the crew on the platform as well, and supposing that they already gave us that clearance, we actually now have to close the doors, and for that we just basically check really quick that we have the APU master switch on and the APU available to use, and after that we simply click return ground services, and using this we can actually remove the external powers and we can remove the wheel chocks and the traffic cones. There's something important to say: if you don't have the parking brake activated, you're not going to be able to turn these or remove these wheel chocks. So to do that, you have to activate or to turn on the parking brake so you are able to remove those switches. Okay, so we can also turn on the radio panel, but we are not going to fly with ATC. If you are flying with VATSIM, you just turn this on. That's our transponder for the squawk codes. This is the TCAS, but we are not going to use it yet. And right now we are going to make our pushback. So for the pushback, how you push back, you can just use the default pushback keys for FSX, which are Shift P, and they're going to start pushing back the aircraft automatically. However, that default pushback that FSX has is not going to turn the nose of the aircraft, so I'm just going to use the GSX add-on pushback right now. If you don't have GSX, you can just use the key Shift P for your pushback, or this aircraft actually has a pushback, but that only works with the checklist. I'm just going to quickly show you guys here. If we activate the checklist on the Copilot, when we arrive to this one that says start and push, it's going to actually give you the option to start a pushback and to configure a pushback. But as we're not flying with helps right now, I'm just going to use the GSX pushback. So here we click prepare for pushback. I'm just going to choose any carrier for us today, and we just have to wait for this to load, because I had not activated the GSX. Basically I didn't, because for this tutorial we don't want to complicate ourselves opening and closing doors, but you can also activate it. So here we just wait to have our pushback. Oh my god, I have not closed the door. I just removed things, but I did not close the door. Okay, something very important is to close all doors before pushing back. That's actually the checklist, but I did not read it. And once you have doors closed, you can actually check, and they can display that our doors are currently closed right here. So we already have everything set. We can just remove the parking brakes. Okay, it says that I cannot remove the parking brakes yet. So for GSX, you just wait for them to give you the instruction of removing the parking brakes. Okay, so here, if you have GSX, you can choose which side are you actually. For the runway that we have to taxi to, I would say that maybe a right pushback to a right direction.
Completed. Ice has been inserted. Release parking brakes.
Okay, so now we can actually release parking brakes. We're just going to
Commencing
release
push.
them.
All engines clear. Start at will.
And there we go. So here we have right and left clear. In real life, if that's also the same situation, if you have right and left clear, which means that there's no one in the platform, you can actually begin to start the engines right now. Because you also have the option to start the engines during the pushback. However, I'm just going to wait there in a complete stop again after the pushback to do it. Or maybe we can just do it. Yeah, let's do it right now. So before start, we should turn on the beacon light, which is going to advise the ground crew that we are about to turn the engines on, so that they have caution with that. See those signs on. The transponder, we would set the squawk right now, but we don't need it. We're not caring about that. And the APU should be on. APU bleed. So here we have the APU bleed option. We turn it on so that we can actually condition the aircraft while we turn on the engines. And that's all the before start checklist. So to turn on the engines, I'm just going to check the view really quick so we can put it easy. Here we see this little square panel that says engines right now. So to start up the engines, we have to move this to the ignition position, right clicking it, and we just click the engine master switch there. So here we see we have put it in an on position, and when we go back to the ECAM view,
Parking brake.
okay, so it says the parking brakes. I'm just gonna put the parking brakes.
Waiting your confirmation for good engine start.
And if we check here the ECAM display, we're going to see that the engine 2 is starting right now. So we're going to wait for it to be stable. In recent aircraft, usually pilots are able to start the second engine immediately, like in the Boeing 787, but in this case we're just going to wait for it to stabilize. It's already stabilized, so we can now go back here. Oh, sorry. We go back here and we just press same here. So an important thing to know is that we don't move the ignition switch back to normal until both of the engines are completely on and stabilized, right? Unless we're doing a single engine taxi, but that's another story. Anyways, if you would like to taxi with only a single engine, which is also an option to burn less fuel, to earn some costs, and maybe to be more friendly with the environment, you could do it. You would just not turn the second engine, you would just begin to taxi with an engine on, and then once we arrive to runway, you would actually turn on the second engine. Right, so we're just going to confirm here to the GSX crew that we were actually able to start the engines correctly. And after that, we are ready with engines on right now. So once we have both engines on, we're going to do the after start checklist. APU bleed should be off. This is the bleed, we can put it off. We can actually turn off the APU right now because it's not using anything. The ground spoilers should be armed right now, so we just click here and we see that they're going to move slightly to an up position a little bit there. That means they are armed. And we can also confirm they are armed looking at the ACAST really quick. We go, oh my god, sorry. If we go here, we can see that it types ground spoilers armed.
Here.
So after we arm these spoilers, we're going to set the flaps. We're going to take off with flaps 1. So flaps 1, there we go. and we can verify in the ECAS that the flaps actually moved right there. Okay, so what's next is the pitch trim and the rudder trim. So we check the rudder trim is in 0, and now we go here and we go
Left is
to
clear, right is clear.
the perf and we check which are the flaps that we're taking off with, which are flaps 1. We already know that, we already set them up, and this here is the pitch trim value as you guys can see. So if we come back here and we select the flight controls page on the lower ECAM display, if we scroll here, you guys are going to see that there's a value that's going to actually change. So here it says that we have to have a 0.8 up value, so we're going to scroll it till we have a 0.8 up value. Alright, that's important. Check that here it says up. If we do it the other way, you guys are going to see that it's going to change from up to down. There you guys can see. It's going to say DN instead of up. But no, we want 0.8 up. So we put it, we scroll till we get 0.8 and we check that's in up. That's correct. Usually here pilots will also check flight controls. So as you can see, as I move my joystick, the lower ECAM is actually going to display how we move the aircraft. Here we have a rudder check, and that's it. Nice. So now we can put this on the wheel to check the brakes temperature. Here's the green body here. It says or determines the brakes temperature, and that's basically to know if we need to turn on the brake fans or not. So this is the brake fan. You would usually turn it on in case brake temperature is above 150 degrees. That happens when you brake too much. Anyways, here it's not necessary right now. So next on the checklist, we can see that we need to turn off the APU master switch. It is already turned off. And engine ITI should be on or off depending on our situation right now. So I'm just going to change the view. Here we have engine NTIs, and this is basically wing ITIs and engine 1 NTIs and engine 2 NTIs. These ones here should be on if we are in an airport that has a really low temperature, maybe in the mountains. Also, if we are in winter, this would be turned on, but in this case we don't need it. Nice. So right now we check back the ECAM to see that we have doors, all doors closed. I lost the door view. Sorry. Okay, let's suppose we already checked. I know that we actually have doors closed, but I just lost the door view. Okay, here it is. Doors closed. If there's not any door open, this is all going to be green. That's our case. And that's it. We're good to go. Great. So if you guys see here, we have this little part here in the ECAM that this basically is going to tell you or give you some reminders for the takeoff here. It says CO, which means takeoff, and it says that we should do something. So what's in blue here means that it's for us to do it, and what's in green, it's what we already did correctly, right? So we have flaps for takeoff correctly set, we have spoilers arm correctly set, the cabin is ready, the signs are on, but we have not tested takeoff config, and we have not placed the auto brake in max. I'm not going to put auto brake in max yet because I want to explain you guys why we have to run the spoilers and why we have to put auto brake in max for takeoff, for you guys to know. But I'll explain that when we are in the runway already. So right now we can start the taxi already. We would ask right now ATC for taxi clearance, and we would check that the area is clear, and that's our case. So we are just simply going to turn off the parking brake, and we're going to slightly move forward. We just need to increase the throttle a little bit. It's not necessary to have too much power. Maybe at first we can put it at 20% and move back again, so that we can give that that start. Okay, so here we're taxiing right now to the runway, and we can check the brakes right now. Also, the aircraft is braking correctly, so that's good. right now, while we are touching to the runway, I'm going to take advantage of that and explain you guys why we actually have to activate the auto braking max and to arm the spoilers. Basically, this is because in case we have to make a rejected takeoff, the aircraft needs to brake as soon as possible. So what happens? The pilot, before reaching V1 speed, actually can reject the takeoff at any moment he wants or she wants, right? That may happen because of an engine failure, that may happen because a fire, that may happen because any situation here, right? Oh, we're going too fast right now. I'm just going to slightly brake here, and I'm just going to put my parking brake really quick to explain you guys really quick also. So here we are in the runway already, and as I was saying to you guys, before the pilot reaches the V1 speed, that in our case is 136 knots, he or she can reject the takeoff at any time he or she wants. This may happen because of a failure or for any reason. However, after he or she overpasses the V1 speed, he or she is compromised to take off. Like, it doesn't matter if the aircraft is blowing up at that moment, you just have to take off. You have no choice. But before V1 you can abort or make a rejected takeoff because of any issue. So that's the reason we need to arm the spoilers, and that's the reason we have to set the parking braking max. That's because in case of a rejected takeoff, we want the aircraft to stop as soon as possible. So there's something I forgot also, and it's that you have to turn on the taxi lights on, or you have to put that in the taxi position. The nose lights have to be in the taxi position. I did not do that, sorry, I forgot it, but you should also do that before taxiing. And right now we're going to enter into our runway, so we put the strobes in on. You can also leave them in auto, but I'm going to put them in on. Landing lights, you put them step up and then you put them in on. Basically this has the 3 steps, because here, as you can see it says retracted. This means that they are going to be into the airplane. Here you guys can see we have nothing at the sides, but if I actually click on off, you guys can see that there are some little dots coming there at the sides of the wings. Those are the landing lights basically, so they can be either retracted, which was our case right now. They can be either off but outside, or they can be on. So we're just going to turn them on right now, and you guys are going to see they're actually going to turn on. Great. So right now we have all lights on. Runway turn off also should be on. This should be takeoff position, and we're going to do the before takeoff checklist. So line up clearance, let's suppose we already have it. Approach path clear, we just checked that we have the approach path clear, which means that there's not any aircraft in final, also that there's not any aircraft in the runway, but we can check that once we are lined up. Transponder should be in TAR, so if we right click here we can activate the TCAS, there we go. TA only, there we go. Engine mode selector should be already normal. That we should have done it since the gate or since the parking. I did not done it. I didn't do it, sorry. But anyways, it should be normal, or it also can be in ignition, but that it's just in case there's a turbulence or there's a shaky takeoff. So if that's the case, you would actually put this in ignition to help the engines stabilize and avoid them to have any failure if there's a shaky takeoff or if there's any turbulence to take off. Okay, great. External lights, as I said, the table should be stowed. Basically, it's because in the Aerosoft you can put this up, which is also a cool feature, but we're just going to put it inside again. And the before takeoff checklist is complete. So right now the pilot, if he wants to, he can put the chronometer here so we can actually see how long is our flight going to take. And we're going to basically align with the runway really quick. There's something we have not done yet also, and it's the takeoff config. So that basically it's a button to activate an option that makes the aircraft check if everything is actually ready for takeoff. So let me just align with the runway, and I'm going to explain really quick. This Aerosoft Hamburg airport is also really nice. Alright, there we go. We are actually aligned right now. So, really quick, what's the takeoff config and why is it for? Basically, if you press here, it's going to appear something that says normal. This is actually going to check that the cabin is in a normal or optimum state for takeoff. If we were missing something, like for example the speed brakes to run, or the flaps, or something is not ready for takeoff, this would appear in red or in orange, basically to alert the pilots that the cabin is not ready for takeoff yet. But in our case we did all the steps correctly, we have auto braking max, we have everything done to take off, so it is going to appear normal right now. Great. Okay, so we're actually ready to depart. The takeoff briefing is done, everything is good. We check that the body is clear, we don't have any aircraft going. Apparently there was just a KLM crossing the runway, but it's okay. So we're going to apply 40% thrust right now. And then we put toga. Toga means takeoff and go around thrust, TOGA, TO for takeoff and GO or GA for go around. $80 knots check. I did not say it at the moment, but anyways. V1, rotate, and we have a positive rate, so we put the gear up. Here we can just slightly move the nose to a 15-degree angle, make sure that you don't put it too up, but that you still have some elevation in the nose. So we can actually, that was the TCAS basically advising us that we have traffic, so that's good. We are sure that the TCAS is actually going. So as I was saying, you want here to have the nose at 15 degrees because we have to maintain our airspeed till we have an acceleration altitude. That's basically to airborne correct. So now we pass 200 knots, we can begin to retract the flaps. And here we can already disarm the speed brakes, so they are actually now in retracted position. So now to activate the autopilot, we just put the thrust in climb. There we go, it should be in climb, and this should be dashed. I did not do that on the ground, but all of this should be dashed, and then we activate the autopilot there. There we go.